Public to order, one of things to you. Fair morning, right? I think over there. Yeah. What's the? Yeah. Hey, Jack. Okay, well, what's the good like?
Have a good trip.
Yeah. Surfing, everything.
Mike Barry, Chair.
Yes.
Tina Stately. Here. Vice Chair. Here. Paul Bizarrely, Clerk. O'Brien Vega. Chris Jordan, Treasurer. Robert Hermiton, Director.
Here.
Douglas Jack Desjardins, Director.
Here.
Thomas Barrett, Director.
Okay.
Tim Wood, Superintendent.
Here. Thanks. Okay, that summary overview of the agenda. Superintendent.
Thank you, Chair Barrett. After our allotted time for comments and delegations, I will provide a quick review. We'll take a look at reports, and as part of that report, we'll have a report from Dustin Hinckley on Check and Connect, a program initiative that we're doing in the district. Then we'll move on to the other reports. Then after that, the consent agenda, including approving the minutes from the November 20th meeting and accepting the donation from the estate of Dr. Mark Butterbrook to establish the Walter Hardy Scholarship. Donation in the amount of $15,263.38. Followed by approving the submission of the fiscal year 24 Minnesota Air Ventilation Pilot Program application by the Red Lake School District. The board has one resignation to approve, then the rescinding of an employment offer to approve, and 6 hires to approve today. We'll then close out the consent agenda by approving the sub list for the month. There's no need for a closed session at this board meeting, so we'll then move into the action items, which include 3 items: approving the list of bills and checks and wires in the amount of $2,530,091.17, followed by adopting resolution 2024-02, establishing combined polling places for multiple precincts and designating hours during which the polling for school district elections not held on the day of a statewide election. Finally, item C, the board will need to certify the 2024 pay 2025 tax levy at $7,084.34. We will then adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll motion to approve, Chairman Barry.
Okay, we have a motion by Nicole,
I'll second.
second by Tina. To approve agenda December 18, 2024. Further discussion.
I would just like to say Chimiquich to Dr. Mark Butterbrook. I read the information on the scholarship that we'll be receiving. I think it would state 1,000 per year. Per student per year.
Yep, I believe that's what it is, if I remember reading it. Yep, so. And if the amount, if there's more added to the contribution or something like that, and it develops more interest, it could be more. But this is a good, very nice starting point.
And Chimiquich to the Olson family.
Yeah,
It's very appreciative. They were the ones that come forth and donated for our football scoreboard.
Yep.
And now they come forth again with another donation.
very generous.
Okay, on the agenda, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Public comments and delegation. Have anybody
Nobody here. It's really nice.
reports, finance report, student enrollment?
Okay, the finance report, I can mention to you that everything is in order, as is always the case. When it comes to the reports that Willie submits, Our starting balance, 24,313,000 and change. And our ending balance, 23,491,000. So a little bit down last year. Last month, we were a little bit up. It just ebbs and flows depending upon what bills we have and the dates and times of various revenue submissions into the general fund. But we're still very strong, very solid. Learned just a couple of weeks ago that even though the ESSER closeouts were at the end of September and we can't spend any more on ESSER, we can go back and reallocate some ESSER dollars to expenses already in. So that gives us a little bit more flexibility in our general fund budget, so makes it even healthier if you will. Okay, moving on then to the monthly enrollment report. Again, we're holding steady, a little bit down, but if you look at our overall numbers, and for this, I would refer you to page 79 in board book, excuse me. Last month, we were at the 3- and 4-year program all the way up to grade 12. We were at 1583, we're down to 1567. A little bit of a loss, but not that much. It's generally, again, paperwork. Students maybe weren't here. We finally figured out that they're not with us. And a few other students have maybe moved on to a different school. But most of the time, at this time of the year, when we see the numbers go down, it's paperwork. It's like, oh, this student is registered but never really came. So by now, we're mostly cleaning all of that up. But compared to where we were last year at this time, we're up by 13. And that's always encouraging when you look at a year to year that we're still up. And when we're looking at about $30,000 per student, that's $390,000 in the black compared to last year. So we're staying steady there. So solid. Then, as the last part of the superintendent's report, if I could turn it over to Dustin Hinckley to share with us for a few minutes about Check and Connect. Thank you, Dustin.
We're not messed up in here. Hello, everybody. Take me just a second to get the presentation up here.
And while he's doing that, I can mention that he was able to share this at the tribal council meeting last week. And that was, it's always nice when we can share with the tribal council some of the things that we're doing in the district. Well received.
A little bit slow. There we go. All right, so who's you? I get to talk to you about 4 quick items, but primarily the Check and Connect intervention. And Check and Connect is an intervention that we have brought in starting last year and primarily at our secondary complex. So Check and Connect is an intervention that is evidence-based. It involves structured mentoring for our students. So we have trained mentors who are primarily student support professionals at the secondary complex who work to help promote student engagement and focus on overall school completion. So they do that through a model where we start with the personal beliefs that students have about themselves and what their future looks like. And then we engage in problem solving strategies and engage them in change work using their strengths and abilities. So it's a focus on what are the kids good at, what are their strengths, what are their abilities look like, what are they interested in, and how can we help them problem solve any barriers that they're having toward meeting their goals. And then we come up with a plan and monitor that on a weekly basis for how they can make change. So we're focused on students who are showing us that their attendance, their behavior, and their course performance are such that they're just not quite getting to where we need them to be. And we work on helping them recognize patterns. We celebrate successes with them, and then we are able to use timely interventions to hopefully help them stay on track as they move forward. So there are a number of components, but one of the core components is the connect piece of Check and Connect. And that means we look at individual data. So the students' check data, that's their attendance rate, their behavior referrals, their course grades. And we take into account their needs and perspectives. We hopefully are able to get family involved and find out about family influences and circumstances that they might be having, and then talk to them about available school and community resources as we work toward increasing their engagement in school and hopefully getting them across the finish line to graduate. So we're engaging with families in a couple of different ways through Check and Connect. We're hoping to enhance our homeschool communication by having the student support professionals who are mentoring these students, reaching out more frequently to parents and guardians. We have recently had our first parent engagement event last week for the families, and we did have about a half a dozen families come in, even though it was probably the coldest day of the year so far that afternoon. And we're looking to find ways to respond to family questions or concerns. So it's a problem solving model with the family as well, and encouraging home support for learning. So what we have found is that some of our families don't really know what it is they can do to help support their students at home. And so providing some of that information to them as well can be really helpful. So our implementation plan was last year we were in the installation phase. We received the school personnel development grant to install and implement Check and Connect. We trained a number of our student support professionals and a couple of special ed teachers to be mentors. And each of those individuals piloted with at least one student during spring semester last year as they were learning the process. This year, we're in the initial implementation phase, so we established criteria for how we were going to select those students who would become part of the Check and Connect intervention. Right now, we have 16, actually many more than 16, but the last time I pulled the data, it was 16 students that we were working with. And the goal is for all of our FSPs to mentor at least one student throughout the year. And the reason we start small and grow is because we want to get it right? This is an evidence-based practice, so we need to make sure we're doing it with fidelity. And fidelity means we have to be checking in with these mentees at least once a week, a minimum of 15 minutes, but it's usually a little longer than that, to look at things like their behavior. How many referrals have you had since last time we met? What are your grades looking like? What are any barriers or concerns that have come up since the last time we checked in? And this is a process that grows. So the mentor and the mentee stay together until either they are able to exit the intervention because they're doing so well independently, or until they graduate from high school. And so we might have someone matched up for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, depending on what grade level they get started with the Check and Connect intervention. And so we didn't want to start every person with a ton of kids and then not have any room to grow as they pick up more kids from year to year. And so then next year we'll be in full implementation. That's where we start using a plan, do, study, act process to see where we need to focus and improve. Our SLPs would continue to meet with their chosen mentees, and then we add students as our capacity allows. And the goal is to have that Check and Connect fully integrated into our multi-tiered system of supports next year at the secondary complex. So the really brief overview of Check and Connect, there's obviously a lot of moving parts with it. And we are just in the middle of initially implementing. So we're hopeful that we can report some successes in the next year or so as we get it up and running. Any questions around that before I briefly touch on a couple of other things? Right, hearing none, I'm going to move on to another project that's called Gear Up and Get Ready. So this is a focus on college and career readiness, which I've heard the board speak to a number of times in the past year or two. So we applied to participate with the Minnesota Office of Higher Education last year as part of their application with federal government. And we found out this fall that we were selected as a district and they were selected for the grant. And so we get to participate. We just finished up signing the initial documents and they're going to get those all sent back. They have to go through the bureaucratic process down at the state level, and then they get back to us. So Tim will be able to sign off on all of that in the next month or so. This particular project is a 7-year commitment from them, funded at about $1 million total over the course of 7 years. And it's going to potentially fund a portion of a position within the school district that focuses specifically on college and career readiness at the secondary level. So this is again a 6-12 initiative. And the interventions that we can select are from a large list of items. One of the main reasons we decided to pursue this particular partnership is because of the flexibility that it allows us at the district level. Sometimes we get into things where it's very prescriptive what we have to do when we get money. This one gives us quite a bit of flexibility. So some of the options that we have are individual interventions and group interventions. So we can engage in counseling conversations around post-secondary planning, match and fit discussions. Like we know sometimes when our kids are 6th, 7th graders, they want to become professional football players and they've never played football before. And so is that a great match? Maybe, maybe not. Let's have that conversation. What are some skills that you are really want to hone in on if you're not playing football? What are you doing? That's a really awesome skill that you can develop into a career. So we can talk about career exploration, job preparation, academic planning, goal setting. We can do mentoring, so it matches really nicely with the Check and Connect intervention because those two can align. Or we can also look at group interventions. So we can do some workshops. We can bring in financial aid counselors to talk to groups of kids and their families about what does financial aid look like, how do you fill out the FAFSA, those sorts of things. We can take kiddos on college visits. We can do work site visits. So things like going to Wells Technology, going to Teams Industry, being what it's all about. Is that a career path that someone might be interested in? So there are a lot of different options for the individual and group interventions that we can do. And we're still right at the beginning stage of this, so we haven't selected exactly which interventions we're going to focus in on quite yet. But we want to get some stakeholder input from those individuals at the secondary who are focused on career and college readiness as part of their role already. People like Melissa Phillips, our Dean of Students, who focuses on the academic side of things and does quite a bit with bringing college reps in, that sort of thing. So we will probably have an update at some point in the future around how Gear Up is going as well.
Is this like for the high school, 9 through 12?
Yes, so
Mostly?
it's a 7-year project focused 6th through 12th grade. And so what they do is they take our 11th and 12th grade cohort this first year and our 6th grade cohort. So they're going to follow that 6th grade cohort all the way through to graduation. And then every year as a group graduates, they'll pick up the next year's 11th graders. So we'll focus on 11th and 12th and then that 6th grade cohort as they move each year.
So then we have like, cause when I was in school, each grade had their own counselor to where they would, keep up with you call you in if you need help with your credits or where you're at in school? Do we have that?
So we don't have that model exactly. We do have a number of folks who fill the role of student support professional, and part of their job is to work with individual students or small groups of students on specific things. But we don't have a true counselor at each grade level for students. Yeah.
So then, do we test our kids to see if they're college-bound students or technicals? Do you guys test them to see if they're like a college-bound technical GED or whatever?
We don't necessarily test them, like to track them, but we test them so that, they're ready.
Right,
To
yeah.
see what they're really interested. It's like when we were, I don't know, I'm always comparing this to Flanders, because when I was there, they tested every student and beginning to find out where they were in math, English, and if they were a college-bound student or what, and then they would put us in those groups. Whether you were a ninth grader or a 12th grader, they put you in that group to do what you had to do
Yeah.
to get done.
So the way that you're describing that, Tina, is like what Tim was saying is kind of a tracking system. And we take a slightly different approach to that. We feel like every student has the capacity to do whatever they choose to do in the future. We do provide some testing that can give us information around what a student's aptitude looks like in a certain content area. So maybe they're really great at science and we want to help steer them in the science direction, right? But we don't have any system in place, and I don't know that we plan to have a system in place where we would say, this is the group who is bound for college, this is the group who's career ready, this is the group who is tech ready. We want to get to a point where every student can make that decision for themselves because they've been prepared for every option available, right? And this is the Gear Up program is one way we can do that by expanding everyone's knowledge about what careers are out there, what college pathways are out there. There's a big difference between going to a 2-year technical school and the skill set that you might need to have to do that versus going to a 4, 6, 8-year schooling program because you want to become a doctor or a lawyer or those sorts of things. Every single one of our kids should be able to have the opportunity to do every single one of those things if that's the thing that they want to do in life. And so that's where we're trying to get, is to give everybody the ability, through knowledge, the ability to make those choices for themselves.
And as part of our mission, we talk about an ever-changing world, preparing students for be productive citizens in an ever-changing world. That speaks to the fact that many students maybe 10 or 15 or 20 years from now, doing jobs that don't even exist today. We want to prepare them not only for all these areas, but for things we're not even aware of yet. That's powerful.
Any questions about Gear Up and Get Ready before I move to topic number 3? All right. As you probably recall, if you've been on the board for a while, we do a quick World's Best Workforce update annually. And this is where we have a number of goals. The state tells us the area of the goal that we have to have, and then the district is responsible for coming up with the specific goals within that area. This year, the 4 World's Best Workforce areas. The first one being all students being ready for school. Those of you familiar with our early childhood programming have probably heard about Begindergarten. Begindergarten is the measure that we were using previously in World's Best Workforce. We are shifting away from that as the measure, and so we weren't able to actually measure this goal this year. We are retooling the entire plan for World's Best Workforce this year, so you're going to see it coming back to you as much more robust than it has been in the past. And so we weren't able to report that this goal was met because we couldn't measure it this fall. The next goal was close the achievement gap between student groups. So that's the state goal area. The district goal was related to our Read Write core curriculum and having kids exit that program by the end of 5th grade. Because if they exit that program, it means that they are considered excellent readers at their grade level. So we wanted 95% of students by the spring of 2027 to exit that program by the end of their 5th grade year. In 22-23, we had 26% of our 5th graders exiting. In 23-24, we had 69%. So we made significant progress toward that goal over the course of the last 2 years. Again, because it's a retooling year, this will probably look a little different next year when we take a look at where our goals are set. We are at a point where read write is likely not going to be our core curriculum any longer. It's going to become a supplemental intervention curriculum, and we're going to focus in on grade level standard curriculum moving forward. So that goal was on track as reported to the state. Our next goal area from the state is all student career college ready by the time they graduate. We focus this goal in on the adults in our district because we want our students to have the social emotional learning, the soft skills, the mental health skills necessary to go on to career in college. And we introduced Project 11 as a mental health and character ed curriculum last year. So we wanted to make sure that all of our teachers had received the training necessary to provide that curriculum to our students. We did meet that goal by having all of our teachers who are responsible for either morning meeting or advisory, which is where we do Project 11, trained. And so this year we've been focusing in on whether we are actually implementing and getting the curriculum out to kids. And so you'll see in the coming year, the plan is going to be more than just getting people trained. It's going to be, let's implement this with fidelity now that everybody's trained. And then the last goal area that they had for us this last year is all students graduate. And this is where we're focused in on our PLC process. So we know that there is a lot of evidence behind PLCs and the power that they have to increase student achievement when they're done right. And so this year we're taking the approach of resetting our PLCs so that everyone's on the same page about what it is to do PLCs correctly. We had kind of fallen off the path a little bit in terms of all of the different things that were happening during PLC time. And so we're getting really focused again on the 4 essential questions. Yeah.
What is PLC?
Oh, yeah. Professional learning community. Sorry.
Okay, and then you have PLT up there.
Professional learning teams. They're the same thing.
Same
They're
thing,
interchangeable.
okay.
Yeah. When we talk about professional learning community, we're talking about the whole school district being the
Okay.
community of learners. And we talk about PLTs or the professional learning teams. Those are the smaller groups within our community that are working towards the goal.
So are there PLT groups still like all the 1st graders and all the 2nd graders and all the 3rd grade have their meeting and then all the specialists have their own meeting?
Yep.
Is
So
that how it still goes?
it's a little bit different depending on the building. But yes, for the most part, it's grade level at the elementary with specialists having their own professional learning team.
And then they still write out that, you know, we have to turn in a paper saying what we all did in our meeting and stuff, and we have to turn it into the principal.
Yes,
Do they
so
still do that?
it is digitized now. So it's an
Yeah.
online rolling agenda that each team completes each week when they meet on Monday mornings. And then this year, because last year's goal was everybody participate, and this year we've moved the needle a little bit. We're actually checking in on the rolling agendas to make sure that everyone is focused in on those 4 essential questions and doing the process the way that we want them to. So we've made some significant gains across the district in terms of everyone getting back on track with what a professional learning team does. And so we're excited to see some positive results of that into the future as well. We really have taken the focus of, there were some things that just need to be reset in the district, and let's all get back on the same page, make sure we're reading out the same book, and then start moving forward again.
So are you keeping your curriculum? Cause I know when I was there, I know one of the biggest complaints from the teachers was that they'll do a curriculum 1 year. And then the next year they're changing it again already. Then they barely got started with the one that they had.
Yeah,
So are we still doing things like that or did it change?
we're working really hard not to. We are utilizing something called the Framework for Managing Complex Change to help us look at every initiative we bring into the district. And that basically is a framework that says, do you have the right leadership? Do you have the right resources? Do you have the right skills? Do you have the right assessment tool? All of the different components you have to have in place to do something with fidelity to see if it has the outcome you want, right? And I agree with you, Tina. I think in the past, what has happened is we've tried something for a year or 2 years and said that didn't work, and then we moved on to something else without actually knowing if the thing was working or not.
Yeah, because it takes time.
It takes a little bit of time. And so we are trying to be much more strategic around when we implement a new curriculum, have we done it with fidelity? And fidelity means have we given it the dosage and the intensity and the frequency? So as many times as we're supposed to, for as long as we're supposed to, with the level of depth that we need to actually say whether it worked or not. And then we can have really solid conversations about, do we need to change this curriculum because it's not working? But we can't just decide at the end of 2 years, this other thing looks shinier and nicer, so we're going to move and do that instead, right? We want to make database decisions. And so that's where we're really trying to focus our energy, is to shift that thought process a little bit across the district. Yeah. All right. Very last thing is an autism research proposal. You heard Tim brought this up to the board last month, but I just wanted to follow up with kind of the key highlights of it. So this is Dr. Locksmith from Bemidji State University and Dr. Eastman from Mankato. And they would be the co-leads on the research with Katie Fairchild and Sharna Johnson, 2 of our level 3 autism teachers over at the elementary complex, being co-researchers along with those 2 leads. Their main question is whether video modeling will lead to an increase in independent transitions between settings by elementary American Indian students with autism. As a number of you know, we do have a growing number of students who are meeting eligibility criteria for autism spectrum disorders across our state, nation, and for sure district. And so we do have a number of programs designed specifically for students on the autism spectrum now. But there is very little research around evidence-based practices for kids on the spectrum who are also American Indian. Sometimes their research will show that it works with other populations, but it doesn't work with American Indian population for whatever reason. Sometimes it shows that it absolutely does. But there's just not much research out there at all for American Indian students on the spectrum. And so Dr. Locksmith and Dr. Eastman are hoping to start building a library of that kind of research, where in this study, learners would watch a short video of themselves completing a target behavior, and then they're prompted to do that behavior. So we would, for example, we might video Chris getting his outside gear on to go outside for recess, right? And then when it's time for recess the next time, we're going to show Chris the video and have him do that independently, or as independently as possible. And then the next time we're going to prompt him and he'll be even more independent with it. So it's basically building a skill by watching themselves do the skill, if that makes sense. This is an evidence-based practice in a lot of populations, but there's no research with relationship to how it works in an American Indian population. So that is the research that they've proposed. Like Tim said, I did present this exact same presentation to Tribal Council last week. They requested that I connect Dr. Locksmith and Dr. Eastman with the Institutional Review Board for Red Lake Nation College. That's basically we refer to it as an IRB. It's basically the group that will take a look at a research proposal and make sure that it's following all ethical guidelines, make sure that there's not going to be any mistreatment of students or staff or all of those sorts of things. And it's an important component in a lot of research studies to make sure that the Institutional Review Board is approving of the research. So we're going to get that sent over to them so they can take a look at it. and hopefully give their approval so that we can move forward. But we, like I told the council and like the board, both Dr. Wadsmith and Dr. Eastman want to be very respectful of the fact that there is a history of maltreatment of American Indians as a people when it comes to research. And so we want to make sure that we're being really transparent, really communicative about what the research will look like that we want to implement when it comes into our schools.
Was it, President King? referred
Yes.
you-
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
because he's been on my case about our graduation rate.
He did make a couple comments when we were there presenting as well about graduation rate.
Yes.
Or in both.
Yeah.
Or in-
Right, those were my 4 topics, so I'll go move on, so you can move on with your meeting.
Sounds good, thank you. That wraps up our report.
Well, thank you, Dr. You want to say about
He was all in support of it and I wanted also to support making sure that we do cover our bases there. I'm just curious to find out what we learned.
what is that job this morning?
We were just talking about that upper twenties. Yeah,
We want it to be 100.
yes, we do, yep. Which is why we have Dr. Eggers coming in now, working with grades 10, 11, and 12. Make sure they're doing better study skills and think about their future.
Did the parent support group start?
Not that I know of yet, or it may have, but I haven't been able to get.
I didn't see any.
Yeah, I'll be seeing him tomorrow or Friday and do a review of his work here. I'll ask him if it has started or when it will start. It's an info, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. We do have a delegation from the public to visit with us.
Okay. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Hi, I'm here on behalf of the youth council. We were, wondering about our youth conference dates, because we want to know potential dates for our youth conference. I have them here, March 26th through the 28th. April 2nd to the 4th. They don't have to be those dates, but just whatever works for you guys. For,
Have you talked to the principal yet?
I think we have, yeah.
Okay. Maybe you narrow it down to those two. What we have to do is also make sure we're not conflicting with like our testing window and the testing and all of that. Looking at those dates, I'm sure the board, you're all looking at your calendars at this point in time.
Do we have to approve it today?
And it's actually not something for board approval because we need to make sure that we don't have conflicts in the rest of the building, but we can informally say, oh, this looks good or not. I can tell you that I'm looking at my calendar, dates in March I think look good, so do the dates in April. I think, oh, go ahead.
We just wanted to, ask because we have to start making flyers. So we can get out the date, so we know,
Chris,
No.
when is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
so we know what dates to tell people we're inviting to come to our conference.
I would check with Principal Frederickson and
When
Smith.
is your warrior?
The last weekend of March.
So
The one
that-
that usually is,
Yeah,
yeah.
It would be during school days though.
Yeah.
yeah.
Those can-
I think they're both open as long as principals, say there's no conflict of like testing that we have to do during that kind of the statement. Or whatever you and Principal Frederickson and, Smith and decide. I think that would be good with us, right?
The March date,
March one?
Actually, either one.
either one, okay.
Principal Frederickson may say, well, the March date doesn't work given testing. So we have to check and go through them. Because they're the ones who are in the know about testing windows and other things that might be going on. If we end up going far in basketball too, that might not work in March. So we have to double check on the basketball dates with Nolan probably, to make sure we know when playoffs are, just in case. I believe March 20th is the first playoff day. If we go further, it could go on, so. So it's really something that's, the board could say, yeah, that looks good, but the final decision has to be the building.
Okay.
So, but we should be able to figure that out in the next couple of days.
Yeah.
Before that, after.
So Chris, when is that challenge?
26th, is it? No, 20,
That's,
the last weekend of March,
It's back.
29, 30, 28, 29, 30, if the humanities was.
Oh, if it gets approved, but that's the proposed date.
Are you planning anything? Good.
Mhm.
That's a good thing.
so that your council was a 26 through to 28, is that gonna interfere with the 28 through to 30?
It would, yeah, cause we use this gym, but we don't start till evening. Not sure what.
We're gonna do it at the school.
So,
Yeah, they'd probably be wrapped up by then.
Yeah.
28.
We're gonna put out a lot of chairs out there, we've been using the last few chairs, like the phone sound system, but that could be cleared up in time.
We'll get it.
So,
Now arrange for good weather, so we don't have snow days.
so just.
Nope, I would say as soon as you can, reach out to Principal Frederickson and see if you can.
Okay.
Yeah. If you have trouble reaching her, feel free to send me that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Consent agenda for December 18th, 2024. Approved.
I'll make a motion.
Yeah, I'll second.
Yeah, the first and a second.
Motion by Rob,
A first and a second, it's like, same time, Jack second or?
Jack second?
Yeah.
Okay, second by Jack, to approve the consent agenda. December 18th, 2024. Further discussion.
We want to make sure we don't forget to have you as chairman sign the air ventilation pilot application for award we're putting in for project to upgrade our boiler system at the elementary with new and improved and better glycol, which is not damaging to the environment as much as the other glycol that we have. So that's all I have for that, and I submit that to your approval.
And this will help with the heating that
Yeah,
issue we
well,
have in August.
This is for over at the elementary, which doesn't have issues right now, other than it needs to upgrade their glycol, so it's less.
Well, they said it was too hot there at a
Oh.
certain time of the year, like the beginning.
Oh. I'm not sure if that'll make any changes. This is more about
The heating,
the fluid that goes through the system, both for cooling and heating.
okay, so it will help.
But it may help if it's more efficient fluid, yeah, and more, less corrosive, more environmentally friendly. Guess we'll find out.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed? So. We have no need for a closed session. Action items. Approve bills and wares for the month of November 2024.
It's all in order, and a little lower than we were last month and the month before, I believe, so.
I'll move to approve.
Chris? Okay. Motion by Chris,
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
second by Paul. Further discussion on the bills and waivers. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? 6-0. Okay, to adopt resolution 2024. Vote to establishing combined polling places for multiple precincts and designated hours during which the polling for school district elections not held on the day of a statewide election.
It's a mouthful, isn't it? But thank you, Chair Barrett. Only reason we do this is just in case in an off year, we need to have an election for board member. You know, if for some reason, something were to happen to one of you or you,
It's a lottery.
yep, exactly. Or move to Canada like you promised to. Then we'll have to have an election, so we have to have polling places designated. So basically, the resolution states that the board may establish a combined polling place for several precincts for district elections not held on a statewide election. Each combined polling place must be a polling place that has been designated by a county or municipality. And the ones we have lined up and have had in the past are designated as polling places. They are the Red Lake Community Center on Highway 1 East here in Red Lake. And then the other one is the Panema Community Center, #1 Indian Service Road Northeast in Panema. This combined polling place and the two of them together serves all the territory in ISD 38, in both Red Lake and Redby and in Panema. So I submit this to you as a resolution for your approval today. Thank you.
I'll move to approve that.
Okay,
And I'll second that.
motion by Chris, second by Nicole to approve. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 6-0. Okay, certified 2024 pay, 2025 tax levy.
Thank you, Chairman Barrett. I would refer you to Board Book page 135. There's a lot of info here, but what really boils down to is that one page. Page 135. And if you direct yourselves to the very bottom, you can see the total levy, and you may recall that back in September, we had a resolution proposing the levy at the full limit amount, which would have been $16,853.14. So we approved that, which means that at this meeting, we can approve it at that amount if we wanted to, but it doesn't need to be that amount. So we're certifying it today at a little less than half that amount. The final number on the bottom right of that first page where it says certified, $7,084.34. So that's probably the smallest amount of any certified levy in the state of Minnesota, because we have so few taxpayers, and that's a nice thing. We just get money through the government. And it's about $75 or $80 more than it was last year, which is really pretty reasonable. So I submit this to you for your approval.
I was taxed.
All right, I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion by Fairman.
Raise those taxes.
I'll second it too. Call my office Monday if you have a problem.
I'll second.
Second by Chris.
It's Rob approved.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Certified 204 pay 2025 tax levy at $7,084.34. Further discussion?
So this is pretty much just our area in Redby over there.
It would cover, all of ISD 38, Redby, Panema, Red Lake.
From this that line, that's what Redby and.
Yeah.
Okay,
We have 13 taxpayers, so I don't know who they all are. That might be part of that.
that railroad, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And then a few others. 13 or 12, something like that. When I say that to people in other school districts, they just, really?
Mhm.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 6-0. Miscellaneous.
I got two things real quick before I forget. Want to mention that there is a winter storm watch about to hit the broader region. We are not in either the advisory or the watch. We're probably about 40 or 50 miles to the northeast of that watch and advisory. However, I'm keeping an eye on it. The Weather Service at a webinar I attended today does indicate that we could stand to get somewhere between 3 and 5 inches. Winds of 17 to 18 out of the east southeast, which is good news for Panema and for the point to cut across. But one of those scenarios where I probably won't know what the weather is like until tomorrow morning. When you
Yeah.
see it, get out there and look at it.
Yeah.
If it looks like we need a late start, I'll, make sure we get the announcements out. I'll reach out to you. So-
Yeah, it looked like midnight or something was supposed to start snowing,
Right.
wasn't it?
Yep, what I have is, actually an hour by hour forecast for about 20 different communities. And for the Bemidji Weather Service area, you're exactly right, about midnight to 3, we start getting moderate snow. Then it lightens off from 6 to 9, lightens off even more from noon until 3 p.m. So we could have snow during that whole time, it's just a matter of what the winds and the intensity of the snow will be. But all indications show that unless they're wrong, we should get 3, 4, 5 inches of fluffy snow. And the wind shouldn't be too bad, just a matter of visibility and ground drifting, but you never know. The timing could be off, the amounts could be off.
And it's glare ice that cut off
So, yeah,
the whole,
yeah, it was
from where it starts to the bridge.
slow going, yesterday for me coming up, even slower the day before that. So, but that's one thing I try to remind people of. We live in Minnesota. We have 5, 6 months of winter weather, so we have to adjust to it, give ourselves extra time. Take our time. The other thing I wanted to mention was, again, thank Rob for his years of service.
Yep.
I hope you don't make yourself a stranger over the next couple of years. Come visit,
I'll be making trouble someplace.
come and talk during delegations
I'll be
and
calling the chairman pretty much here.
Show up to every meeting for public delegation.
Yeah.
and then come back in a couple of years, do it again.
How many years did you serve?
Over. Worked for the school 45 years and served for
For school? Well, that's his speaker.
hard working.
15 years. And thank you for your service.
Yeah.
So demanding we use your tax dollars wisely.
Yeah, I'll leave a check before I leave the thing in here.
Pay those taxes.
Me with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion. Oh,
Who?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
We'll have Rob second, right?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay.
Jack, what are you gonna do? Can we go, Jack? Can we go? No? We don't want them.
Where?
We'll go over to your house, Southwest. Yeah,
That's an hour at Jack's house.
yeah. Have your portable setup already?
No.
Not yet?
Those are for wimps.
Stand all right on the lake.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, 6 goals. I'm at 150.
Wait till it's 20 below for.
Stand right on the lake, no fish on it. Oh.
Thanks,